welcome to Mary's Travel Blog, and today I'm getting ready to board a bus, go on a tour of a cemetery here at Arlington. It's about the only place I know where they have bus tours to go tour a cemetery. How wow is that? Welcome to Mary's Travel Blog, and today I'm at Arlington Cemetery in Washington, D.C. and I'm getting ready to load a bus to go take a tour of a cemetery.
Served as a technical sergeant during World War II on D-Day. Also was a field investigator for the NAACP civil rights activist. He was laid to rest here with full military honors. Keep an eye out on the passenger side, ladies and gentlemen. You will see row upon row of seemingly endless markers standing in perfect formation from every direction you look. These are our government standard issue markers. They're made of raw marble, weigh roughly 230 pounds, and they're provided free to family, friends, and loved ones of those who are laid to rest here at Arlington National Cemetery. As opposed to, if you look on the driver's side of the vehicle, there's a variety of markers, different sizes, shapes, and colors. 100,000 are now laid to rest here at Arlington National Cemetery. National Cemetery itself through the World War I gates once again. So keep an eye on either the driver or the passenger side. You'll notice the walkway ahead of us. That is the Custis Walkway. The Custis Walkway extends all throughout the cemetery from Arlington House to the Old Wetzel Gate at the Iwo Jima Memorial. No access to the Iwo Jima Memorial to Arlington National Cemetery at this time due to construction. Keep an eye on the passenger side, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to enter General Ulysses S. Grant during the Civil War. Coming up here on the passenger. This section is noted for the Supreme Court justices, associate justices, and chief justices made to rest here in this section alone in Section 5. Keep an eye out for a tall black marker with the Star of David on it around the passenger side of the vehicle. That is the final resting place for Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, second woman ever appointed to the Supreme Court. And behind the large Weeks Memorial, 2 rows back, is a darker granite marker for Thurgood Marshall, Associate Justice, first African American to be appointed to the Supreme Court. Keep an eye on the passenger side, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see a series of walkways, ramps, and stairs that will lead up to the eternal flame. Also laid to rest with John F. Kennedy is his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who lit the eternal flame. Maybe. In that room, Jesus that wrapped the sarcophagus for Captain Robert Todd Lincoln, the eldest son of Abraham Lincoln, the only son of his to survive to adulthood. As of 2017, these markers are no longer allowed here at Arlington National Cemetery due to maintenance and space concerns. In March, John Fitzgerald Kennedy made a surprise visit to Arlington House. Upon bearing witness to the beautiful view of Washington, D.C. from the top of the property, which is the highest point at Arlington National Cemetery, he couldn't help but tell the caretaker of the ground standing next to him, saying, "It's so beautiful, I could stay here forever." After his assassination in November of 1963, his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, upon hearing the words that he had spoken months before, insisted that instead of having him laid to rest in his home state of Massachusetts, they instead be laid to rest here at Arlington National Cemetery, where he now does indeed lie forever. Keep an eye out here on the driver's side, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see the Custis Walkway once again. On the driver's side, look up. The walkway to grows past, present, and future. Recently has undergone some wonderful set of renovations for the exhibit. As of 2017, these markers are no longer allowed here at Arlington National Cemetery due to maintenance and space concerns. In March, the Air Force was not an established branch of the armed services until 1947. Now, good enough on the driver's side of the vehicle as we pass through those World War I gates, ladies and gentlemen. Keep an eye out on the driver's side. This beautiful gray building is the military.
Don't want to do that, you don't have to. You can look around the grounds on your own.
The ceremony that you are about to witness is an Army wreath-laying ceremony to be conducted at Frankfurt American High School reunion. It is requested that everyone remain silent and standing during this ceremony. All military personnel in uniform will render the hand salute, and it is appropriate for all others to place their right hand over their heart upon the command of present arms. Thank you. Present arms.
Closer together and notice how they say in memory of. These are some of our memorial sections here in the cemetery. No actual burials take place in these sections. These are people that qualified to be laid to rest here at Arlington, but either their remains were never recovered or their remains were scattered elsewhere. Now over here on the passenger side, we're still coming to section 35. Here in section 35, we have Senator John Glenn. He flew combat missions during World War II. He was one of the original Mercury astronauts, and he was also the oldest man in space that is laid to rest here in the cemetery.
So the table there, which was where Angela was sitting at.
On this leg of the journey, Stephen is my colleague with us today. Omar is our driver, getting us around the cemetery safely, not easy. Is in motion. Wait until
what they fashioned themselves as being, as being an organization.
Continued on by 1864, the cemeteries in this area were filling up rapidly. It was the job of Washington Park Custis. He's laid to rest here with his wife, Mary Lee Fitzhugh. They lived here with a daughter, Mary Anna. She went on to marry up-and-coming Army officer Robert E. Lee. Now, the Lees lived here for a little over 30 years. They raised a family here. In 1861, when the Civil War broke out, President Abraham Lincoln offered the command of the Union Army to General Lee. But Lee was from Virginia. He didn't feel in good conscience he could raise his sword against his fellow Virginians. So he turned the president down, took command of the Union Army instead. By 1863, the rest of the Lee family had fled to Richmond. No Lee would ever live on this property again. The Army took it over for its strategic location in downtown Washington, D.C. It became Fort and founder of Arlington National Cemetery. Montgomery C. Meigs, to find a place to bury his war dead, he commandeered 200 acres of this property to do just that. That's how we went from plantation to Army Fort to Arlington National Cemetery. Tanner Amphitheater on the passenger side cited the original Decorations Day, what we now know as Memorial Day. Through the hedges on the passenger side, you will see a large white sarcophagus. This is the tomb for the Civil War unknown. Little over 2,100 laid to rest in this section, both Confederate and Union soldiers. Now this is our stop for the Arlington House. There are 5 National Cemetery. There's the back of the entrance, or I call it the amphitheater.
African people for the American South.
father, George Washington Parke Custis, who was willed to him by his grandmother, Martha Dandridge Custis Washington. So the lineage of the property dates way back to the Revolutionary War times. Mary Anna Randolph Custis had been born here, grown up here, married Lieutenant Colonel Robert E. Lee in the parlor of Arlington House in April of 1830, and they lived here for the first 31 years of their marriage until April of 1861, the outbreak of the Civil War. At that time, Major General Robert E. Lee was then asked by President Abraham Lincoln if he would be the head of Union forces during the Civil War. And he turned it down. He said in all good conscience he could not bear arms against his fellow Southerners or against his fellow Virginians. So with that, the Northern Army took over the right of the plantation. By right of eminent domain, it became Fort Whipple, a Union Army command post. Their job, to protect the capital city of Washington, D.C. from the Confederate Army. Since there was no longer a bastion of the Confederacy, the Lees were forced to flee. They ended up moving to Richmond, about 90 miles south of here. That was the capital of the Confederacy at the time, and the Lees were never able to live here again. The wooded area over on the driver's side of the vehicle, that's known as Arlington Woods. Arlington Woods will give you an idea of what the plantation looked like when it was a working plantation, and it was, in fact, a working plantation. Cattle and livestock were the mainstays, as well as swine and poultry, a few locally indigenous crops, altogether about 1,100 acres. Today, if the 1,100-acre plantation were still in existence, it would include all of what is now Arlington National Cemetery, the Pentagon, the U.S. Air Force Memorial, the United States Marine Corps War Memorial, and Fort Myer. Today, Arlington National Cemetery is only about 639 acres. Arlington National Cemetery is an L3 arboretum. That makes it the third largest arboretum in the country. There are over 10,000 varieties of plants, trees, shrubs, flowers, grasses, mosses, etc., and planted on the cemetery grounds. And if you look at the grounds, you will notice how well manicured and how well maintained the grounds are. Totally different from the European landscape after World War I. World War I was the first fully mechanized war in Europe. That's the use of tanks, as well as the Gatling gun, machine guns, chlorine and mustard gas, etc. Totally ravaged the landscape, leaving the only thing that would grow would be the red poppy. The poppy is a sign of resilience and perseverance, and the red color is emblematic of the blood that was shed over the European theater of operations during World War I. It encouraged Dr. John McCrae to write the famous poem In Flanders Fields. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row. And for those of you that wish I have commemorative poppies up here for you as you leave, if you like, Arlington National Cemetery, ladies and gentlemen, is the final resting place of over 400,000 men, women, and children. Now, of that over 400,000 men, women, and children, there are only 2 presidents of the United States that are buried here on the cemetery grounds. One of them is our 35th president, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. His grave marker is marked by the eternal flame. The idea for the eternal flame was Mrs. Kennedy. She'd seen the eternal flame marking the tomb of the unknown soldier at the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. It had impressed her greatly. She wanted President Kennedy's grave marker to be memorialized in exactly the same way. The first president buried here is coming into view on the passenger side of the vehicle. Look up the walkway, and you'll see an obelisk in the corner there. That is the grave marker of our 27th president, William Howard Taft. President Taft is the only person in the history of the United States to have presided over 2 of our 3 branches of government in his lifetime. As President of the United States, he presided over the executive branch of our government. After he left the presidency, President Taft was appointed Chief Justice of the Supreme Court in 1921 by then-President Warren G. Harding. He presided over the judiciary branch until his death in 1930. President Taft was a lawyer by trade. He often said he preferred the law than he did to being president. The gray building over on the passenger side of the vehicle, that's the Military Women's Memorial, dedicated to the over 1.8 million women that have served or are currently serving in our armed forces. I highly urge you to go in and see it while you're here. Take a few minutes to go in and look at the museum. It's the only museum of its kind in the United States that's dedicated solely to women and the contribution they have made to our armed forces. They underwent recently a multi-million-dollar renovation. They just reopened in June. They had been closed all winter. And if you have an opportunity, hop in and see it for a few minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now back at the Welcome Center for the conclusion of our tour. I do wish to thank you for being such an attentive audience and allowing me to give you a little bit of my rudimentary knowledge of Arlington National Cemetery. Omar has done the driving with 28 funerals going on cemetery grounds. It's not an easy job, and he does a great job of it every day. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in the meantime, look around. Make sure that you have
Washington Park Custis. He's laid to rest here with his wife, Mary Lee Fitzhugh. They lived here with a daughter, Mary Anna. She went on to marry up-and-coming Army officer Robert E. Lee. Now, the Lees lived here for a little over 30 years. They raised a family here. In 1861, when the Civil War broke out, President Abraham Lincoln offered the command of the Union Army to General Lee, but Lee was from Virginia. He didn't feel in good conscience he could raise his sword against his fellow Virginians. So he turned the president down, took command of the Union Army instead. By 1863, the rest of the Lee family had fled to Richmond. No Lee would ever live on this property again. The Army took it over for its strategic location in downtown Washington,